wonder what Hawaii will be like in 25 years. I'll be 70, hopefully still going hard and being all up in your shit daily. Ellie, you'll be 30, and your sister, you'll be 28. I've driven you crazy right now with all the rah-rah 808 that you've heard. Chanties of Brown Town, home team, and dad being unapologetically geocentric. By the time you're an adult, you have heard legendary stories about your dad going off on poke and Hawaiian pizza. I gotta apologize to you now that your entire upbringing will have food woven into every experience of your life. Food was always around. Oji-chan, Oba-chan, and your great Oba-chan were good cooks. And Oji-chan paid his way through college as a noodle cook in one of the busiest restaurants in Honolulu. New Year's Eve brought everything to the table. Godlo mein, sushi, pancit, every kind of fried chicken imaginable, zippy's chili, and 16 different kinds of super stew. Summertime was punaluu at the Lums and bon dance at Nu'uan Hongachi. Summer. Every single summer. And holidays, there was a system. An annual pilgrimage to the various aunties and uncles' houses that we had to visit. You see, when I was small, we stayed in our respective town, familial and ethnic circles. Life was different, a lot smaller. We never wondered what our cousins were doing on Maui or what new fad was trending at the time. Stop it. We kept our circles. That was local style. Even though plantation days were long past, we kept our habits and traditions. Your dad had local friends, mostly of the brown Asian or Hawaiian variety. I think your dad had maybe 2 or 3 Holly friends growing up. And Ellie, I never, ever kissed a white girl. Until college. We felt comfortable. We felt comfortable, locked in the geocentric world that we lived in and played in. I was secure in unknowingly knowing that I was living in the majority. And as I got older, stories of friends coming back from the mainland or continent spoke of a world where being brown sometimes gave you a side eye or a funny look. We would joke about, like see somebody try to hear. Sadly, daughters, I would be lying to you if I said that I never treated a lighter-skinned individual with prejudice. Simply because they were a fucking holiday. I was a young adult, and having a filter was something that I definitely lacked. In hindsight, I never thought that applying our aloha spirit with judgment. In my ignorance and cultural conditioning, my aloha was not colorblind. I was young and angry and full of fire, and I had to direct it at someone or some people. So anybody that didn't fit the mold for the people that I hung out with, well, that's all, and I didn't have time for you. And then I met your mother, and everything changed. I didn't know at that time that I was about to go through the hardest, painfulest, challenging, important, and ultimately fulfilling chapter of my life. Your mother reluctantly walked into my life. She'll tell you that too. However, as our friendship grew, I began to see things differently. I began to ask myself if all the values that I held precious still held water. Meaning, were they all legitimate? Was being local a noun or an adjective? Was being local about hobbies, food preferences, and mannerisms? Or was it intent, commitment, and accountability? I've had a long time to think about my next statement, that your mother has changed every facet of how I view people. Your mom challenged the idea that I had in my head on what it meant to be from Hawaii. I saw in your mother an individual fiercely committed to her home in Hawaii and also very proud to have come from Missouri. That was one of the many traits that I fell in love with your mother. When I met your mom's family, Memo and Papa, for the first time, I saw a family that didn't place others on a hierarchical bookshelf, categorized through the Dewey Decimal System of how thick your accent was, what town you lived in, what school you graduated from. I began to see a family that looked at the world through a lens of colorblind. And every time that I went to Springfield, I began to see parallels, that aloha wasn't regional, that empathy, sense of place, pride in oneself, and commitment to community didn't just reside here. What a thought. I began to see that being local was so much more than the ideas that I'd grown up with. And the more that I learned from your mother, the more that I wanted to learn about myself.
Thanks a lot. As if this wasn't hard enough, as it is. So I'm a little bit different than everybody else here tonight speaking. I think we all can probably figure out that difference. Sit down. But I too have a letter for our daughters. Dear daughters, you must be sick of hearing this by now. But we are so lucky to live, work, play, and coexist in Hawaii. To you, as born and raised Hapa girls, life here and our local ways are really all you know. You wake up to rain on the mountain and rainbows out your window. Your favorite dinner is luau stew. You love dancing with your hula sisters and running around barefoot on the playground. You play music in garages. Your hair often smells like smoked meat from hanging out with your uncles. And your favorite music video is anything by Project Kuleana. Cheer! You have a deep love and respect for our Aina. You have a sense of place that many adults I know are nowhere near. You are both living the life of a local girl. I'm so proud to be your mom, and it's not lost on me how lucky I am to be raising you in such a magical place. Frankly, I believe that all of us get to be our best selves because of where we live. For mommy, growing up in Missouri was a little bit different. First, let's do a bit of background on Missouri, because I know they ain't teaching you this in school. The Missouri Territory, which later became the state of Missouri, took the name of the Missouri River. The river was named for the Missouri Indians who lived along the banks, and Mommy is proud that these natives are some of our ancestors. We are also known as the Show Me State, and there are many theories on how we got that nickname, but my favorite, and I'm pretty sure it's the most accurate, is that because Missouri folks can be somewhat stubborn and have a strong commitment to common sense. If you ask your father, I think he would agree that that sounds pretty accurate. So to fit this stereotype of being from the 417 means you have a church, a bar, and a Chinese restaurant all on one street. You know the weather can be 60 degrees one day, and you can have an ice storm the next day. You probably got married young and have a handful of kids running around right now. I didn't do all of those things, but I wore cowboy boots from the time I could walk, and my favorite fancy food was a twice-baked potato. After-school activities included things like clogging, think river dance, country style, hot pink satin jumpsuit, horseback riding, and roller skating. We had lots of snow days, and I spent my summers staying in RV parks all over the continent with my family. My public school was primarily filled with neighbor kids who I had known since I was a baby. For the most part, they looked and talked like me. We rode the same bus to and from school. We played together in the streets until the sun went down. We were really a tight-knit tribe, connected simply by location. No one I knew actually went to a private school, and you never once got asked, what school you grad, when you were at a job interview. I suppose people came and went, but not enough that we ever asked people if they were local. We just assumed they were. Otherwise, why the hell would they be in Springfield, Missouri? To me, when I think of what being a local of Missouri felt like, the first thing that came to mind was family. Holidays involved massive family gatherings at my great-grandparents' tiny farmhouse. Us city folk and the cousins from the sticks would all gather for potluck. It looked kind of like a crock-pot reunion, and you could always count on there being at least 10 different kinds of dips and an obscene amount of Velveeta. If you still don't get the visual, Paula Deen Pinterest. That's where you should go. Grandma Linda would send every family home with her homemade cinnamon rolls, and the smell always made me think of Christmas morning. As you know, girls, we have still continued that tradition. We went sledding behind cars in ice storms and spent summers fishing from pontoon boats, frog gigging, and canoeing on the river. I'd say that being a local Missourian, which we would never say, by the way, typically meant that you were a friendly person, you asked a lot of questions, like my dad, and you might take a few minutes longer to tell a story. Thanks for bearing with me. But what does a person from Missouri sound like? That's a question I always got, and it's really a tricky one. So let's take Mimo and Papa, for example. Mimo and Papa were born and raised in the same town. They went to the same high school. They lived in the same house from the age of 19, but they had very different accents. Mimo may have had a little Missouri twang, definitely not Southern, but 100% not from the East or West Coast. Papa, on the other hand, sounded like what we call a good old boy. He drew out his vowels, and he really owned that Southern draw. "Y'all from around here?" was his favorite greeting when filling up with gas during our travels. Papa would say, "You know if someone is from Missouri by the way they say it." Missouri? 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 I don't know. Springfield, too, was perhaps a melting pot. It was just kind of the white chocolate kind of melting pot. My assumption as a child was that because Mimo worked at a bank, she talked like all the bank people talk. And Papa worked at the factory with all the uncles, so he talked like the uncles. Later, Mimo explained that many guys drove in for hours from outside of town to work at the same factory as my dad, so I guess it makes a little bit more sense now. When I asked Mimo what being local meant to her, I felt proud that our family's values here are the same that they have been for many generations 4,000 miles away. Treat others as you want to be treated. Always be curious about life. Love Mother Earth. If you care for her, she will care for you. Respect all people, no matter how different you may be. Live simple. So, at 19, when I presented your grandparents with my first business plan to move to Hawaii and be self-sufficient in 1 year, I took those values with me. In January 2001, I landed in Honolulu with 2 suitcases and $500 in my checking account. I got a job at Duke's, Waikiki, and I established really my first version of what ohana meant. Some of my best friends today, including your Auntie Rai Rai, I met while I worked at Duke's. Your dad refers to this as the Duke's Mafia, and I think there might be something true to that. This job, you see, it not only allowed me to fund my own college and pay my living expenses, it also laid the foundation for the deep love and connection that I felt. I experienced firsthand what a complex role tourism and the military and money played here. Many of my colleagues were local, born and raised here. And with my family so far away, I spent many holidays with them. They took me in like I was their own. I learned to pick opihi, clean fish, and surf. I spent my days off camping and diving for shells, hiking, sailing, spearfishing, loving my life. I fell so in love with the shared appreciation of the land, the tegu, The barbecue on the beach, the people, and the diverse cultures that collided. As much as so many experiences were new and exciting, there was also so much familiar feelings and comfort, like the core values I had brought with me. I went to college to be a documentary filmmaker. I landed an internship with the talented Edgy Lee. The internship turned into a job, and before I knew it, I was going along on Drug Bus with Matt Levi in Waianae and working on a film on the ice epidemic. I credit this experience of seeing the underbelly of Hawaii with my deep dedication and passion for community. I saw and connected with people from all walks of life. I knew at that time I was committed to this place, and I had no plans of leaving. Around this time, I moved from town to Waimanalo. I was one of 2 haole girls on my block, behind McDonald's. There were times when my howliness was definitely brought to my attention, especially when I was dating that cute boy from Nalo. I was often put in my place and felt a level of discomfort I had never felt before. I knew my place was to step back and to listen and to take it and to be humble and to continue to show up. As time went on, I settled in Nalo. I made friends with our block. I became auntie to the baby next door. I tutored at Waimanalo Elementary. I spent hours listening to stories of old Hawaii from the kapuna. I had a pit bull. I even went to cockfights. I was committed to this place. I loved its beauty and its pain. I didn't expect it to accept me, but I accepted my role as a haole who was connected to this place and who was committed to being a part of it. In my next chapter, I think around 2010, I moved back to Manoa. I lived across the street from the Korean restaurant on the corner of Lowry, which is now the home to Morning Glass. Can we give a hand for Morning Glass? I think we manifested that for the record, but I walked to my office. I walked to school. I made friends with my neighbors, our houseless community. I met your dad. Now that's where the story gets a little fun. Maybe I should pause there for a second. I feel like the time when I met your father, I had a sense of, wait a minute, I like this guy, but I don't date Asians.
See?
I was a few years into my company and working like crazy, and a friend had recommended a chef who is dedicated to the same values you are. He's uplifting local food and makes it taste really yummy. This sounds exactly like what I was looking for. But after 2 emails and 3 voicemails and no response, I decided to move on. Now, going back to my core values, as a girl from the Show Me State, I was not impressed. Long story short, he finally called me back. I offered him a super offensive small stipend to do a local beef dish for one of my clients, and he said yes. I said, does that come with rice? He said yes. Plan backfired. Now I had this super loud chef who appeared to be a hot mess following me around. He would randomly stop by my house, and all of a sudden, he seemed to be at all the same sustainability and local food events and talk stories I was at. He offended my sponsors. He said inappropriate things, but he still showed up. I couldn't shake him, and he was so not my type. I don't date Asians. I said that right? Definitely not chefs. I dreamed of a nice Hawaiian, handsome husband. But sometimes, my dears, just like mommy and daddy tell you, you don't get what you want you get what you need. So here we are. He's Asian, I'm Caucasian. We're like the typical local couple, but swapped. We eat local style. We play music local style. We party local style. We make babies local style.
Yes!
And now we have you too, our beautiful girls. You've grown up living a life that doesn't define what local means. It celebrates it. I, my dears, am not a local girl. However, in your mind, I'm the queen of your world, and your world is here in Hawaii. This must be confusing. It confuses me. I don't call myself local, but would you? I can't wait until you are old enough for us to have this conversation. I can't wait to hear how you see the world and our island and our home and how you play a role in it. Until then, Daddy and I want to leave you with a few words. Be gentle on us here.
I hope you have your mother's self-confidence and pride for people and place.
I hope you get your dad's ability to make people feel seen and to laugh.
And be safe. I want you to be proud of your Holly roots.
I want you to be proud of your brownie roots.
We hope that your table at the holidays will still have ganlo mein, sushi, pancit, every kind of fried chicken.
We want you to be raised in both worlds, the 808 and the 417.
We want you to be proud of where you came from.
And even more proud of where you're going.
We
hope that in your life's journey, we will have given you the tools to have the confidence that no matter where you go, your home will go with you. That's a part of being local in Hawaii.
That sets a place. We hope that we will have instilled in you a strong, loving, and proud sense of place. We hope that you remember that while time was short, with Papa and Mama, that they shared everything that they held proud of where they came from.
We want you to love your community like we love ours. Because being part of your community is what makes a place a home.